Hello YouTube and welcome to the 4th PTG Rail Routes Guide video. Routes Guides are documentary style videos recorded within Train Simulator where we focus on one particular route in each episode. We focus on the history of each route as well as looking at key points of interest. On today's episode we will be looking at the Brighton Main Line. The Brighton Main Line runs for just over 50 miles between Brighton at the southern end of the route and two major London stations at the northern end, London Victoria and London Bridge. The route was opened in stages between 1841 and 1862, with the section between Norwood Junction and Haywards Heath opening on the 12th of July 1841, and the section between Haywards Heath and Brighton opening later that year on the 21st of September. The original route ran into London Bridge Station. The route into London Victoria Station was again opened in stages, with the original route being via Crystal Palace and Streatham Hill, with the line from Norwood Junction to Crystal Palace opening in 1851. From there, the route was further extended to Sydenham in 1854, Balcombe and Wandsworth in 1856. Battersea in 1858, and finally London Victoria in 1860. A cut-off line between East Croydon and Balcombe was opened in 1862, which reduced the distance and journey times for trains heading into Victoria. Like many other routes built in the 19th century, parts of the Brighton Main Line were subject to disputes between rival railway companies. There were originally 6 different proposals to build a route between London and Brighton, and after an expensive battle between rival companies, the London and Brighton Railway emerged after an Act of Parliament on the 15th of July 1837. This led to the building of the most direct route between London and Brighton, coming off the route of the London and Croydon Railway at Norwood Junction. One of the conditions of this Act of Parliament was that the London and Brighton Railway had to share the routes between Croydon and Redhill with the South Eastern Railway, whose main line to Dover diverged at Redhill Station. In 1846, the London and Croydon Railway and the London and Brighton Railway were amalgamated to form the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway. Disputes continued between the South Eastern Railway and the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway for over 40 years until the Quarry line was built in 1899. The Quarry line is a cut-off for express trains, which bypasses the section of line through Redhill, which effectively ended the disputes between the two companies. The Quarry line was opened to passengers on the 1st of April 1900. The Brighton Main Line was the first main line in the United Kingdom to be electrified throughout. The original electrification system was an overhead system, with the South London line between London Victoria and London Bridge being the first section to be electrified by the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway, opening on the 1st of December 1909. Within the next 3 years, the line from London Victoria to Selhurst was also electrified, with the section from London Bridge to South Croydon being electrified in 1920. Plans were then drawn up to further electrify the route all the way down to Brighton, but these plans were later scuppered after the grouping rationalisation, which took place in 1923. At this point, the Brighton Main Line fell under the control of the Southern Railway, who decided instead to electrify the route using a third rail system. This system was already in place on the former London and South Western Railway out of Waterloo, which was also now under the control of the Southern Railway, and so the decision to electrify the Brighton Main Line using the third rail system was part of a process of standardisation. Conversion to the third rail electrification started in 1928, with the electrification extending southwards to the now closed Coulsdon North Station by 1929. By July 1932, electrification had been completed down to 3 bridges, with full electrification being extended all the way to Brighton by January 1933. At the time, the electrical supply utilised 660 volts of direct current. The electrical supply on the route today is powered at 750 volts of direct current. After the railways were nationalised on the 1st of January 1948, the Brighton Main Line fell under the control of the southern region of British Railways. British Railways, which later became British Rail, then operated the route until privatisation in the mid-1990s. During this time, services on the route were rebranded under the Network South East franchise, which later became Network South Central. In the 1980s, British Rail started operating Thameslink services from Bedford to Brighton, travelling down the Midland Main Line before passing through the previously closed Snow Hill Tunnel in central London. From there, the trains passed through Blackfriars and London Bridge stations before heading down to Brighton. After privatisation, the Thameslink services were passed on to the train operating company of the same name, which was a franchise of Govia. Since then, the Thameslink franchise has been operated by numerous train operating companies. Other services on the Brighton Main Line were passed on to the new Connex franchise. After Connex lost their franchise in 2001, services were passed on to South Central Trains, which was later rebranded as Southern and is also a franchise of Govia. Another major passenger operation on the line is the Gatwick Express, which runs express services between Gatwick Airport and London Victoria. We start our tour of the route here at the southern end in the city of Brighton and Hove. The city has a population of around 280,000, making it the largest city in Sussex. Brighton and Hove is part of the larger Brighton, Worthing and Littlehampton conurbation, which has a population of almost 500,000 people. There is evidence that there was a settlement here as far back as the Bronze Age, and the first documented mention of a settlement here was in the Domesday Book in 1086, referring to a place known as Brighthelmstone. In the 16th to 18th centuries, Brighton began to grow in popularity due to improved road links with London, and was also a boarding point for boats across the Channel to France. The town also grew in popularity as a health resort, with the sea air purported to be a cure for a number of different ailments. Towards the 19th century, Brighton developed into a fashionable resort, which was helped by King George IV spending much time here and constructing a palace which became known as the Brighton Pavilion. With the arrival of the railway in 1841, Brighton continued to grow in popularity as a tourist destination, becoming especially popular with day trippers from London. The town continued to grow well into the 20th century, and in the year 2000, it was granted city status as the City of Brighton and Hove, which also incorporated the nearby town of Hove. Brighton Station first opened on the 11th of May 1840 for trains travelling on what is now the West Coastway route to Shoreham. This was the first line from Brighton to be opened. The station was built by the London and Brighton Railway, along with a goods station, locomotive depot and locomotive works. Being located around half a mile from the sea and 70 feet above it, substantial excavation works were required for the station and for the connection with the route from London. The station cost around £9,766 to build, which is close to £1 million in today's money. As part of the construction, 4 pitched roofs were built, each being 250 feet long. The original station was then further extended in 1846 with the opening of the Brighton, Lewes and Hastings Railway. The station continued to be expanded during the 19th century, but only limited expansion could take place due to the nature of the sloping sites on which the station had been built. One solution to this was to lengthen the platforms so that more than one train could fit into each one. In 1882 to 1883, the original 4 roofs were replaced with one overall roof, which was renovated between 1999 and 2000 and still stands to this day. In April 1973, the station became a Grade 2 listed building. With over 17 million passenger entries and exits annually, Brighton is one of the busiest stations in the country and is the 7th busiest outside London. There are 3 main routes coming out of Brighton Station. The first is the West Coastway route, which heads through Hove Tunnel and continues west along the coast towards Shoreham, Worthing, Littlehampton, Bognor Regis, Portsmouth and Southampton. Great Western Railway also operate a limited service along here towards Bristol and Cardiff using Class 158 diesel multiple units. The West Coastway routes can only be accessed from platforms 1 to 3 at Brighton, with platforms 1 and 2 being used exclusively for West Coastway trains, and platform 3 being used for trains from the West Coastway, as well as trains from the other 2 main routes. The main route out of Brighton is the route towards London, which heads north away from the station. This can be accessed from platforms 3 through to 8. The other route which runs out of Brighton Station is the East Coastway route, which can also be accessed from platforms 3 through to 8. Immediately after turning away from the station, the East Coastway route crosses the 1,200-foot long, 67-foot high London Road Viaduct. Construction of the viaduct began in May 1845 and it was completed in March 1846, 2 months before the line's opening. Consisting of 27 arches and around 10 million bricks, the structure is still in use to this day, and like Brighton Station, London Road Viaduct has also become a Grade 2 listed building. The East Coastway route is used by trains from Brighton through Lewes to Seaford, Eastbourne, Hastings, Orr and Ashford International. The trains along this route are primarily Class 313 and 377 electric multiple units, with 2-car Class 171 diesel units being used on the route to Ashford International, as Electrification only extends as far as Orr, which is just beyond Hastings. Just north of Brighton Station is Lovers Walk Depot, which is the maintenance depot for Southern, based in Brighton. As we head north away from Brighton Station, the next landmark that we encounter is the junction where the Cliftonville Spur joins the Brighton Main Line. This short spur originates at Hove Station and passes through a tunnel before joining the Brighton Main Line just here, and it's used for trains travelling from the West Coastway routes heading towards London. Around 1¼ miles north of Brighton Station, we come to the first station on the route at Preston Park. Preston Park Station serves the northern suburbs of Brighton, including Preston Village. The station was originally opened by the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway as Preston on the 1st of November 1869 to serve the then growing parish at Preston, which was the northern boundary of Brighton. In 1879, the station was remodelled and enlarged to its present-day form after the construction of the Cliftonville Spur from Hove. The station was renamed Preston Park at this time, although it wasn't until 1883 that the nearby park of the same name was opened. The station has almost 500,000 passenger entries and exits annually. There is a pair of carriage sidings just to the north of the station, used for the stabling of trains. Heading away from Preston Park, the next landmark that we encounter is Patcham Tunnel, which is the first tunnel on the route. At 488 yards long, the tunnel was constructed between 1840 and 1841. Immediately after leaving Patcham Tunnel, the line then briefly runs alongside the A23, which is the main road from London to Brighton. A couple of miles north of Patcham Tunnel, we encounter Clayton Tunnel, which is the longest tunnel on the line. Clayton Tunnel is 1 mile 499 yards long and took 3 years to construct. The northern portal of the tunnel has the appearance of a castle, and the attached cottage is a private residence. The structure was originally built to house the lamplighter, whose job it was to relight the gas lamps after passing trains had blown them out. Due to the design of the northern portal, it is a Grade 2 listed building. On Sunday the 21st of August 1861, there was a major accident in the tunnel, which at the time was the worst accident to befall the British railway system. The accident highlighted the problems inherent with the signalling systems which were in use at the time. 3 trains departed Brighton within a relatively short space of time, and after the first train had entered the south portal of the tunnel, the signalman failed to replace the signal to danger in time. He then tried to prevent the second train from entering before the first train had left by waving a red flag. Wrongly believing that his red flag had not been seen by the second train, he then misinterpreted a tunnel-clear telegraph signal from the northern end. The signalman then assumed that both trains were clear of the tunnel, and so allowed a third train to enter. The second train had seen the red flag, however, had stopped and was at this point reversing back to the south end of the tunnel. The resulting collision between the second and third trains caused 23 fatalities and 176 injuries out of a total of 589 passengers. 7¼ miles north of Brighton, we encounter the second station on the route at Hassocks. Hassocks has a population of 7,667 people and is classed as a large village. The first settlement here was around 5,000 years ago, when farmers began to settle on and around the South Downs. The station here was opened on the 21st of September 1841 and was originally named Hassocks Gate. At its opening, it was one of the few stations on the Brighton Main Line to have 4 tracks, which allowed faster express trains to overtake slower stopping services. However, the number of tracks was later reduced to 2. Between 1880 and 1881, a new station building was constructed, and the station was renamed simply as Hassocks. Being a gateway to the South Downs, which is now part of the South Downs National Park, the station was used frequently for special excursion trains from London. In 1973, the station was demolished and rebuilt by British Rail with a new structure that the locals have described as truly awful. There have been campaigns to have the station rebuilt into the older style, but so far this has been unsuccessful. Hassocks Station has around 1.3 million passenger entries and exits annually. The next station along the route is located at Burgess Hill, just over 9 miles from Brighton. With a population of just over 30,000 people, this is the largest town we have so far encountered since leaving Brighton. Like Hassocks Station, Burgess Hill was opened on the 21st of September 1841 with the completion of the railway through to Brighton. The original station consisted of wooden platforms and a wooden hut, with a number of sidings and a signal box being constructed later, though none of these survive today. At the time of the station's opening, Burgess Hill was a rural backwater, but by 1880 had grown into a town with a population as high as 4,500 people. Today, Burgess Hill Station sees annual passenger entries and exits of almost 1.8 million. Just to the north of Burgess Hill Station is Kemah Junction, where a branch from the East Coastway route at Lewes joins the Brighton Main Line, heading through the villages of Cooksbridge and Plumpton along the way. This route is used by trains from London Victoria to Eastbourne, Hastings and Orr, with occasional peak services to Newhaven and Seaford. This route is classified as the Main Line East route. Just beyond Kemah Junction lies the station of Wivelsfield, which serves the northern parts of the town of Burgess Hill, along with the village of Wivelsfield, which is around 2 miles from the station. The London, Brighton and South Coast Railway first opened a station at Kemah Junction in 1854. In 1883, Kemah Junction station was closed to allow for proposed remodelling of the junction itself. The railway then decided to abandon these changes and sought parliamentary approval to do so. As part of this, Parliament required that a new station be built to the north of the previous station. This second station was opened on the 1st of August 1886, again called Kemah Junction. During the construction of the new station, the high embankments here had to be widened to accommodate the platforms. Just 2 months after opening, heavy rain caused a landslip which resulted in a long station of the up northbound platform collapsing, falling down the embankment. The station was renamed as Wivelsfield on the 1st of July 1896. There was a serious accident here on the 23rd of December 1899, with a train from Brighton colliding with a boat train from Newhaven Harbour. The collision was the result of a danger signal being obscured by thick fog, and the two trains collided at an estimated speed of 40 miles per hour. This led to 6 fatalities and 20 serious injuries, and as a result of the crash, the signalling around the area was significantly improved. Today, Wivelsfield sees around 500,000 annual passenger entries and exits. Just before the next station at Haywards Heath, we encounter the 249-yard-long Haywards Heath Tunnel, which is one of the shortest tunnels on the line. Haywards Heath Tunnel is also known as Folly Hill Tunnel, which is the name of the hill which it passes through. Haywards Heath Station is around 13 miles north of Brighton and 36 miles south of London. The town here has a population of just under 23,000, yet the station here is of key importance to the Brighton Main Line, and as an interchange station, it's the largest along the route so far. Trains travelling northwards here often join together to form longer trains, with trains heading southwards often splitting into multiple services. This is to allow for higher capacity on the northern end of the route towards London. Haywards Heath Station was originally opened as a terminus on the 12th of July 1841, 2 months before the opening of the route down to Brighton. During this 2-month period, passengers travelling to Brighton would have to alight here and take a horse-drawn coach service for the remainder of the journey. The importance of Haywards Heath Station increased with the opening of the Main Line East routes from Kemah Junction to Lewes. On the 3rd of September 1883, a new branch was opened by the Lewes and East Grinstead Railway between Copyhole Junction, just north of Haywards Heath Station, through Ardingly to Horsted Keynes. The station here was then enlarged as a result, with 2 new bay platforms being added, although there was no physical connection between the Ardingly branch and the Brighton Main Line. The tracks from the branch ran parallel to the main line, with a connection only later being added in 1912. For a time, this allowed the route through Horsted Keynes and East Grinstead to be used as an alternative to the Brighton Main Line when required. The Ardingly branch was closed to passengers on the 28th of October 1963, with Horsted Keynes Station now being part of the Bluebell Steam Railway. A freight-only service now runs along a single-track section of the branch, which survives between Copyhole Junction and Ardingly to serve an aggregates terminal there. Today, Haywards Heath Station sees an annual passenger usage of almost 4.5 million people. The next major landmark that we encounter north of Haywards Heath is Ouse Valley Viaduct, which is also known as Balcombe Viaduct. Ouse Viaduct is one of the most recognisable landmarks on the Brighton Main Line. The viaduct is 1,475 feet long and 96 feet high, with a total of 37 arches. Each arch is 30 feet wide, and a total of around 11 million bricks were required in its construction. These bricks were shipped from the Netherlands and along the River Ouse via Newhaven and Lewis. Costing around £38,500, which is around £3.5 million in today's money, to build, the viaduct opened in July 1841. The structure is a Grade 2 listed building and was restored in 1996. Today, the viaduct sees an average of around 110 trains a day passing over it. Heading away from Ouse Valley Viaduct, the next station that we encounter is at Balcombe. Balcombe Station serves the village of Balcombe, which has a population of 1,765 people, making it the least populous location that we've encountered so far along the line. The station here lies around 17 miles north of Brighton and 34 miles south of London. The original Balcombe station was opened in July 1841 by the London and Brighton Railway, but this was later closed and resited to its current location by 1849. Throughout the day, Balcombe station generally sees one train per hour in each direction, with a few extra trains stopping during peak times. Annual passenger usage sees just over 100,000 entries and exits. A short distance from Balcombe Station, we reach Balcombe Tunnel, which is 1,131 yards long. The tunnel was constructed by the London and Brighton Railway between 1838 and 1841. The hill it tunnels under is made of clay, and 5 ventilation shafts were added to the tunnel. One problem encountered during construction is water leaking from the ground above into the tunnel, and this is a problem still encountered to this day. In an attempt to combat this problem, iron sheets were fitted into the tunnel to attempt to stop the water falling onto passengers who were sat in the open carriages which were used in the 19th century. One issue with this, however, was that the blast from steam locos and the changing air pressure caused by passing trains in tunnels sometimes resulted in these metal sheets being torn away from the structure. This presented a serious safety hazard. Another potential hazard during winter time was hanging icicles in the tunnel. In 1998 to 1999, the tunnel's ventilation shafts had catchment trays fitted underneath in an attempt to divert the seeping groundwater into a specially built drainage system. However, by 2013, the supports for these trays had failed, which required additional supports to be installed. A short distance from Balcombe Tunnel, we encounter Balcombe Tunnel Junction. This is the start of 4-track running on the Brighton Main Line, with the up and down fast lines on the right-hand side, and the up and down slow lines, which diverge here being on the left-hand side. The positions of the fast and slow lines will swap as we get closer to London. The next station along the route is Three Bridges. Three Bridges Station was originally built to serve a village of the same name, though today this village has become a district of Crawley. Crawley is a town of almost 110,000 people, making it the largest town so far encountered along the route since leaving Brighton. Three Bridges sits roughly 29.5 miles south of London and 21.5 miles north of Brighton. The station was opened by the London and Brighton Railway on the 12th of July 1841, which at the time was in a location where there was a proposed branch to Horsham. This branch was later opened in 1848 by the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway, and now forms part of the Arun Valley Line, which diverges away from the Brighton Main Line immediately south of Three Bridges Station. The Arun Valley Line then runs through Crawley and Horsham before connecting to the West Coastway Line near Ford Station. Trains from London to Horsham, Bognor Regis and Southampton Central use this route. Three Bridges was originally planned to simply be named as Crawley, but the name Three Bridges had been decided by the time the station was opened. Contrary to popular belief, the station wasn't named after a series of railway bridges, but it was instead named after crossings which already existed over streams in the area. The station was enlarged in July 1855 when a branch to East Grinstead was opened, and then further enlarged again when the line was quadrupled in the early 1900s. A number of important pieces of railway infrastructure are located here, not least of which is Three Bridges Signalling Centre. There has been a signalling centre here for a number of years, controlling a vast portion of the Brighton Main Line and parts of the surrounding branches. This has recently been moved into a new rail operating centre, controlling much larger portions of railway in the southeast of England. Three Bridges Rail Operating Centre will be just one of 14 planned by Network Rail to replace thousands of signal boxes across Britain. Another major recent development is the construction of a depot to house the new Class 700 Thameslink trains. Three Bridges Station sees an annual passenger usage of around 3.2 million. Around 2.5 miles north of Three Bridges is one of the most major stations on the line at Gatwick Airport. The station here is located at almost the halfway point between London and Brighton, and with almost 17.5 million entries and exits each year, it is by far the busiest station we've yet encountered. There have been two stations located at Gatwick, with another now closed station lying 3/4 of a mile to the south. The station, which was built on the present site, was opened simply as Gatwick in September 1891 and was built to serve a racecourse of the same name. At the time, the station was only operated on race days, being closed the rest of the time. Passing loops and sidings were built at the station to allow trains to be stabled here without blocking express trains travelling down the main line. Racing at the racecourse was stopped in 1940 and was never again reinstated after World War II. In spite of this, Gatwick Station was renamed Gatwick Racecourse in 1946, a name which it held for the next 12 years. The station had fallen out of use since the opening of the second station in the area at Tinsley Green, which was also called Gatwick Airport. Opening in 1935, the station was originally named Tinsley Green for just 1 year before being renamed Gatwick Airport in 1936. In the 1950s, the government decided that Gatwick would form London's second airport. Expansion of the airport at this time led to it being built over land originally used by the racecourse. The station at Gatwick Racecourse was then entirely rebuilt to form part of the airport complex and was opened on the 17th of May 1958. At the opening of the rebuilt station, it was renamed Gatwick Airport, with the Tinsley Green Gatwick Airport station closing at the same time. Gatwick Airport itself has become the second busiest airport in the United Kingdom after Heathrow, and is the 9th busiest airport in Europe. Total passenger numbers now exceed 40 million per year, and the airport has the world's busiest single-use runway, with up to 55 planes an hour landing and departing. Apart from Southern and Thames Link services running through the station, Gatwick Airport also sees Great Western Railway services from here to Reading via Redhill and Guildford. It is also the starting point for a number of Gatwick Express services, which run non-stop into London. Ironically, although named the Gatwick Express, the train takes little more than 5 minutes less than conventional services to cover the distance into London, yet costs a premium for the privilege of using it. More recently, Gatwick Airport Station has been remodelled, with the addition of another platform on the eastern side. This isn't shown in Train Simulator, however, which utilises the original layout for the station in the model used on this route. Less than a mile north of Gatwick Airport station is Hawley, which is the next station along the line. The station here serves the town of Hawley, which has a population of just over 22,000 people. The original station at Hawley was located 301 yards to the north of the current site, and was opened by the London and Brighton Railway on the 12th of July 1841. The station was further enlarged in 1862, before the current station was opened in 1905, when the Brighton Main Line was quadrupled. For a time after this, the original station became a station master's house, though this was later demolished in the 1960s. Trains stopping at Hawley primarily use the slow line platforms, with occasional services using the fast line platforms. The station here sees just under 1 million passenger entries and exits per year. Continuing north along the Brighton Main Line, just over 2 miles north of Hawley lies Salford's station. The station here serves the village of the same name, which has a population of around 1,900 people. There was no station here until 1915, when on the 8th of October a station was opened with the name Salford's Halt. It was built for workers of the Monotype Corporation, which had built a factory near the railway in 1899. After opening, services here were infrequent and not advertised to the public. They were operated only based on the needs of the corporation. After electrification of the line in the 1930s, Salford's Halt finally started to see a regular advertised train service. The station was renamed simply as Salford's on the 1st of January 1935. Annual passenger usage here is just under 140,000. The next station along the line is Earlswood, which serves a suburb of Redhill and has a population of just over 5,000 people. The station here was opened by the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway on the 1st of August 1868. When the lines were quadrupled here, the station was expanded to include 4 platforms. The fast line platforms later fell out of use, closing in the 1980s. However, the remains of the fast line platforms can still be seen. Today, the station sees annual passenger usage of just under 500,000. Earlswood is the location of the final junction before the fast line split away from the slow lines, heading along the Quarry line until the lines rejoin again south of Purley. We're now going to look at the major structures on the Quarry line before coming back to the slow lines at Redhill. The first major structure, just to the north of Earlswood, is the 649-yard long Redhill Tunnel. Opened by the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway in 1899, the tunnel itself is only 502 yards long, with the remaining 147 yards being under a covered way, over which passes the Redhill to Tonbridge line. Continuing north, the line then passes over the M25 motorway, which is London's orbital motorway, before heading into another tunnel, which is the 1 mile 353 yard long Quarry Tunnel. Quarry Tunnel is the second longest tunnel on the Brighton Main Line after Clayton Tunnel. The tunnel took 3 years to build, with construction starting in 1896 and the tunnel opening for traffic on the 8th of November 1899. After passing through Quarry Tunnel, the fast lines cross over the slow lines at Star Lane, so they will be on opposite side when the two routes rejoin. The final structure to talk about on the Quarry Line section of the route is the Covered Way. Originally known as Cane Hill Tunnel, it's passed under the grounds of the Cane Hill Mental Hospital. At 431 yards in length, it had the appearance of a long bridge rather than an actual tunnel. Due to high maintenance costs of the covered way, it was later decided to remove the roof and leave up the retaining walls to form a railway cutting instead. Heading back to the slow lines, just under 2 miles north of Earlswood we come to the station at Redhill. The town of Redhill has a population of just over 18,000, and the station sees annual passenger numbers as high as 3.5 million. Redhill is a major interchange for trains travelling on 3 different routes away from the station. Departing to the southeast is the 20-mile line to Tonbridge. Departing to the north and south is the Brighton Main Line. And departing in a southwesterly direction is the line to Reigate, Guildford and Reading. There were a number of stations built in the Redhill area before the current station was constructed. The first station was opened by the London and Brighton Railway on the 12th of July 1841, with the site being located to the south of a proposed junction with the Redhill to Tonbridge line. Just 3 years later, on the 15th of April 1844, the station was closed and soon demolished. The South Eastern Railway opened a second station at Redhill on the 26th of May 1842, originally calling it Redhill before later changing the name to Reigate. It was at this time that the South Eastern Railway proposed a joint station for use by both companies, a plan which the London and Brighton Railway opposed. After disputes arose between the two companies over where passengers should change trains, a new station was eventually built at the present site by the South Eastern Railway. The station opened on the 15th of April 1844, the day that the original London and Brighton Railway station closed. From this point, both London and Brighton Railway and South Eastern Railway trains shared the same station, which was named Redhill and Reigate. This station was later rebuilt and enlarged in 1868, at which time the name was changed to Redhill Junction. After grouping in 1923, the Southern Railway changed the name to Redhill in July 1929. The next station, just under 2 miles north of Redhill, is Merstham. Merstham is a large village with a population of just over 8,000 people. There have been 2 stations located in Merstham, with the original station being opened by the London and Brighton Railway on the 1st of December 1841. This was located around 3/4 of a mile to the south of the present location, and again, due to disputes between the 2 rival railway companies along here, the original station was closed in October 1843. A new station was opened at the present site by the South Eastern Railway on the 4th of October 1844. Annual passenger usage here is just over 700,000. Shortly after leaving Merstham, the slow lines then cross over the M25 motorway before heading into Merstham Tunnel. The 1 mile 70-yard long tunnel was constructed by the London and Brighton Railway between 1839 and 1841, with the tunnel opening on the 12th of July 1841. Just to the north of the tunnel is a 2-mile, 100-foot deep railway cutting, which was a monumental task to dig, involving the moving of more than 1 million cubic yards of chalk. The slow lines then pass under the fast lines at Star Lane before we arrive at the next station, which is Coulsdon South. Coulsdon South Station is one of several stations which have served the town of Coulsdon. The town has a population of just under 26,000. The station here was opened by the South Eastern Railway on the 1st of October 1889. The original name for the station was Coulsdon and Cane Hill, with the Cane Hill part of the name referring to the nearby psychiatric hospital. Coulsdon South Station sees an annual passenger usage of around 1.7 million people. Another station which was built in Coulsdon 10 years after Coulsdon South Station was Stoats Nest and Cane Hill. This was opened by the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway on the 5th of November 1899. The construction of the station was timetabled with the quadrupling of the Brighton Main Line, so the station was built with 4 platforms from the start. After a serious accident here, the station was renamed Coulsdon and Smitham Downs on the 1st of June 1911. Undergoing several more name changes, it was renamed Coulsdon West in July 1923, only for it to be changed to Coulsdon North just 3 weeks later in August 1923. The station then retained the name Coulsdon North until closure in 1983. There are no visible remains of the station today, as it was demolished soon after closure. The station was close to the site of Stoats Nest Junction, which is the first junction between the fast and slow lines since leaving Earlswood. Joining the Brighton Main Line from the west shortly before Purley is the branch from Tattenham Corner, which was opened on the 2nd of November 1897. The route is modelled from Coulsdon Town Station, which was formerly called Smitham, running through Reedham Station and then passing under the Brighton Main Line to re-emerge on the other side just before Purley. Also joining the Brighton Main Line just before Purley is the branch from Caterham, which was opened on the 5th of August 1856. Purley has a population of around 14,000 and is situated in the London borough of Croydon. The original station here was opened in July 1841 as Godstone Road, but this was subsequently closed in October 1847 due to low passenger numbers. By 1855, there was a dispute between the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway and the South Eastern Railway over a proposal to connect sandstone quarries at Caterham to the Brighton Main Line. After the Caterham branch was opened in 1856, the station here was reopened by the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway within 3 months, this time known as Caterham Junction. On the 1st of October 1888, the station was renamed Purley, and during the quadrupling of the Brighton Main Line, Purley Station was extensively rebuilt. Today, Purley Station sees an annual passenger usage of around 3.2 million people. On the 4th of March 1989, there was a major accident just to the north of Purley Station. After stopping at Purley, the 1250 Horsham to London Victoria service, which was formed of a 4-car Class 423 unit, was crossing from the slow to the fast lines when it was struck from behind by the 1217 Littlehampton to London Victoria service, which was formed of 2 Class 421 units. The resulting collision led to the first 6 coaches of the Littlehampton service derailing and coming to a rest down an embankment. There were 5 fatalities and 88 injuries. The driver of the Littlehampton train was found to be at fault, having missed both the cautionary and danger signals. Just under a mile north of Purley is Purley Oaks Station. Stopping services only use the slow line platforms, with the fast line platforms having been disused since 1983. The station here was opened by the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway on the 5th of November 1899 to coincide with the opening of the Quarry line. There are over 600,000 entries and exits per year at Purley Oaks, and the station is only a short walk from Sanderstead on the Uckfield and East Grinstead line. Just before the next station at South Croydon, the line from Uckfield and East Grinstead joins from the southeast. East Grinstead services are operated by Class 377 Electrostar units, while Uckfield trains are operated by Class 171 diesel multiple units, and this is due to the line not being electrified between Oxted and Uckfield. South Croydon was originally a terminus station, with the Brighton Main Line passing through but having no platforms to serve it. The station sat at the end of a 1-mile extension from New Croydon Station, which is now a part of East Croydon, and was opened on the 1st of September 1865. In the 1890s, parliamentary approval was given to extend the local line south from Croydon to Coulsdon to connect with the new Quarry line. During the construction, South Croydon Station was rebuilt to become a through station, with platforms built on all lines. Today, The station has 5 platforms, 3 of which are in use. The 2 platforms on the fast lines are no longer used. There are almost 1.3 million annual entries and exits at South Croydon Station. Undoubtedly one of the most important stations on the Brighton Main Line, East Croydon sits just under a mile from South Croydon, 10.5 miles south of London Victoria and London Bridge, and just over 40 miles north of Brighton. The station here was opened by the London and Brighton Railway on the 12th of July 1841, and at the time was named Croydon. The population of Croydon was just under 17,000, and today it stands at just over 173,000. This was the second station to be built in the Croydon area, with the London and Croydon Railway having opened a nearby station, also called Croydon, in 1839. After the London and Brighton Railway and the London and Croydon Railway were amalgamated into the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway in 1846, the original station in Croydon became known as West Croydon, and the Brighton Main Line station became Croydon East. In 1862, Croydon East was renamed East Croydon. Due to the completion of the lines to Victoria at this time, extra platforms were needed at East Croydon. The new platforms were then treated like a separate station and named New Croydon. In 1868, a half-mile-long branch was opened from here to a station called Croydon Central. This venture was largely unsuccessful, with the branch closing just 3 years later in 1871. Due to pressure from the council, the branch was eventually reopened again in 1886, this time to last 4 years, before final closure in 1890. The town hall now stands in place of the old Croydon Central Station. East Croydon was extensively rebuilt and remodelled in the mid-1890s to deal with the ever-increasing traffic on the Brighton Main Line. East Croydon and New Croydon were also merged into a single station, which were renamed as East Croydon Main in 1909, with the suburban platforms being named East Croydon Local. These two were then amalgamated to form East Croydon in July 1924. The current station building opened on the 19th of August 1992. Passenger numbers have grown considerably in the intervening years, leading Network Rail to be revamping the station once again. With the annual passenger entry and exits being just under 23 million, 7.5 million of which are interchanges, East Croydon is one of the busiest stations not just on the Brighton Main Line, but also in the whole of the United Kingdom. Just to the north of East Croydon Station is Windmill Bridge Junction. Here the lines towards London Bridge and London Victoria split, with the fast lines to Victoria turning to the left, and the fast lines to London Bridge passing under the slow lines to Victoria and turning to the right. The Brighton Main Line to Victoria then crosses the line towards West Croydon and Sutton, which joins the line to London Bridge as it passes Selhurst Depot. There is also a branch between the Victoria Slow Lines and the London Bridge line. Selhurst Depot sits between Selhurst Station on the Victoria line and Norwood Junction Station on the London Bridge line. It is the main depot for Southern trains in London and houses a variety of different types of rolling stock. The next station on the line towards London Bridge is Norwood Junction. Norwood Junction is managed by London Overground, with services operated by London Overground and also Southern. The original station in this area was opened by the London and Croydon Railway in 1839 and was named Jolly Sailor. When the London and Brighton Railway and the South Eastern Railway started using this route in the 1840s, neither of them used Jolly Sailor Station. After the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway was formed, the station was renamed Norwood, and by 1856 this had become Norwood Junction. This station then closed in 1859, following the construction of the lines to Crystal Palace, with the station at the current site opening at the same time. In 1910, The station name was changed to the rather verbose Norwood Junction and South Norwood for Woodside, before being renamed again as Norwood Junction in June 1955. Norwood Junction Station today sees almost 4 million entries and exits per year, with around a third of these being interchange passengers. We're now going to take a brief look at the stations and points of interest on the route to London Bridge, but I don't plan to go into quite as much detail here, just so I can try and keep the length of this video down a bit, and also to give me some leeway as I do plan to make a route guide video in the future to the lines of South London. Shortly after Norwood Junction Station, the line towards Crystal Palace diverges. Thameslink services are currently using this route due to the remodelling and rebuilding of London Bridge Station. Also, crossing over the London Bridge lines from Crystal Palace is the route to Beckenham Junction. The line from here through Crystal Palace and Streatham Hill was the original route into London Victoria before the cut-off was later built in 1862. The next station that we encounter is Annerley, which was opened in 1839. Like all of the stations between Norwood Junction and New Crossgate, it is operated by London Overground, with Southern also operating some services. Beyond Annerley, we now come to Penge West Station. Also opened in 1839, it closed just 2 years later in 1841, before eventually being reopened again in 1863. Just before the next station, a branch from Crystal Palace joins. Trains heading away from London Bridge can turn off here towards Crystal Palace, with trains heading from Crystal Palace to London Bridge joining here. The next station is Sydenham, which was opened in 1839. The platforms here were re-sited from their original location in 1844 and 1852. After Sydenham, we come to Forest Hill Station, which was also opened in 1839 and was originally named Dartmouth Arms. The station was renamed Forest Hill in 1846. The next station is Honor Oak Park, which was opened on the 1st of April 1886. After Honor Oak Park, the next station is Brockley, which was opened on the 6th of March 1871. The line from Nunhead to Lewisham crosses the London Bridge lines at this station. The final station before London Bridge is New Crossgate, which was opened on the 5th of June 1839. The East London line, which was part of the London Overground network, used to run from here. This was closed in 2007 to make way for the new London Overground network, reopening again in 2010. From here, London Overground trains diverge away from the route to London Bridge, heading towards Surrey Quays, Canada Water and Dalston Junction. London Bridge Station was the original terminus of the Brighton Main Line and was originally opened in 1836 by the London and Greenwich Railway. Since then, the station has grown considerably and now serves large parts of London and the southeast of England. Recently, major work has been happening in the area to remodel and rebuild the station, ready for the completion of the new Thameslink project. The southern platforms form the terminus part of London Bridge Station, with the rest of the station dedicated to serving Thameslink and southeastern services. The southeastern services heading in the up direction feed into two major London terminal stations, which are Charing Cross and Cannon Street. The 1,016-foot tall Shard skyscraper sits right by London Bridge Station. This is the tallest building in the United Kingdom and the fourth tallest in Europe. Before the rebuilding of London Bridge Station began, passenger numbers were at nearly 57 million per year, which makes London Bridge the fourth busiest station in the United Kingdom. Whilst those numbers have temporarily fallen to just below 50 million, it's estimated that they will grow even further upon the completion of the new station. We now head back to Windmill Bridge Junction and follow the route into Victoria. The next station we encounter is Selhurst, on the opposite side of Selhurst Depot. Selhurst sits just under 9.5 miles from Victoria Station and was opened on the 1st of May 1865 as a two-track station. In 1903, the lines were quadrupled, leading to the rebuilding of Selhurst, and 9 years later, in 1912, the area around Selhurst Station was chosen as a new depot for trains running on the newly electrified routes through to this station. With the exception of limited late evening services, all trains calling at Selhurst use the slow line platforms. For all stations between here and Clapham Junction, only the slow line platforms are now used, with the fast line platforms all closed off to the public, except in emergencies. Passenger entries and exits here are over 1.6 million per year. The next station towards Victoria is at Thornton Heath. Thornton Heath Station was opened on the 1st of December 1862, along with the cut-off which bypassed the route via Crystal Palace. At the time, the cut-off was called the Balcombe Hill and East Croydon line. It has been suggested that Thornton Heath could have originally been called Collier's Water Lane when opened, though no one has been able to verify this claim for certain. Like at Selhurst Station, the line here was quadrupled in 1903. Thornton Heath Station now sees over 3.2 million entries and exits per year. The next station along the route is Norbury, which was opened in January 1878. At the time of opening, the area around the station was fairly rural. Today, the station sees almost 3.5 million entries and exits per year. After Norbury, the next station that we encounter is Streatham Common. Opened on the 1st of December 1862, the station was originally named Greyhound Lane. After reports of an accident in the area in the Times newspaper in 1863 referred to the accident as being near Streatham Common Station, the name was officially adopted in 1870. Here at Streatham Common, another alternative route towards London Bridge diverges, heading through Streatham Station and Herne Hill. The Sutton and Mole Valley lines also cross over the Brighton Main Line, with the branch towards Herne Hill joining them. Trains from London Victoria to Horsham via Dorking turn off at this point, following the Mole Valley line. Streatham Common Station is one of the busiest operated by Southern, with over 4 million entries and exits per year. Just before the next station at Balham, the line from Crystal Palace via Streatham Hill joins the slow lines towards Victoria. The original station at Balham was opened by the West End of London and Crystal Palace Railway in 1856 and was named Balham Hill. The London, Brighton and South Coast Railway later purchased the route towards Victoria, which was then Battersea Wharf, in 1859 and resited Balham Hill to the current location in 1863. This new station was then named Balham. In the 1890s, the station underwent further remodelling to increase capacity. In 1927, the station was named Balham and Upper Tooting, before again being renamed Balham in 1969. Today, Balham sees over 7.6 million annual entries and exits. The next station is Wandsworth Common, which, like so many other stations on the route, was originally built in a slightly different location, which was a short distance to the north of the present location. It was opened on the 1st of December 1856. The station was later resited as part of works to widen the line, reopening again on the 1st of November 1869. Wandsworth Common sees just under 2 million annual entries and exits. The next station along the route is one of the busiest and by overall train numbers is by far the busiest in the country, and that is Clapham Junction. With up to 180 trains per hour passing through the station at peak times, over 18 different platforms totalling more than 2,000 trains per day, Clapham Junction is truly in a league of its own. If watching trains on busy routes is your thing, then this is definitely the place to be. The first route to pass through the area was constructed by the London and South Western Railway and ran from Nine Elms to Woking, opening in 1838. However, no station was constructed here at the time. After the route from Nine Elms had been extended to Waterloo in 1848, and the route into Victoria had been opened in 1860, the need for a new station here was finally recognised. Clapham Junction opened on the 2nd of March 1863 as a joint venture between the London and South Western Railway, the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway, and the West London Extension Railway. The station was perfectly suited to provide an interchange between the different routes of the respective companies involved. Over the years, the station has been expanded and extended into the station that we now see today. Services through here run from London Victoria down the Brighton Main Line and London Waterloo down the South Western Main Line towards Woking, Portsmouth, Basingstoke, Winchester, Southampton, Bournemouth and Weymouth. South West trains also operate diesel services from London Waterloo down the South Western Main Line towards Basingstoke, Salisbury and Exeter. Trains also run from Waterloo towards Windsor and Eton Riverside, and also Richmond and Reading. London Overground services start and end here on two different routes, one via Willesden Junction to Stratford, and the other via the South London line towards Canada Water and Dalston Junction. Services also run from here onto the Cross London line, through Kensington Olympia, and onto the West Coast Main Line at Willesden Junction. Clapham Junction sees around 26.5 million annual entries and exits, with around 28.5 million interchanges. Heading away from Clapham Junction, the Brighton Main Line then follows the path of the South Western Main Line and Windsor lines for a short distance, before turning away to the right, climbing and then taking a sweeping left curve to ultimately cross over the lines to Waterloo. Just after crossing the lines to Waterloo, we encounter the final station before Victoria at Battersea Park. Battersea Park Station was opened as York Road Battersea on the 1st of May 1867 and was located on a new high-level cut-off line built to reduce congestion into Victoria Station. The station was renamed as Battersea Park and York Road on the 1st of January 1877 before finally being renamed as Battersea Park on the 1st of June 1885. Today, Battersea Park sees around 2.5 million entries and exits per year. One major London landmark which has overshadowed Battersea Park Station for much of its existence has been Battersea Power Station. There were actually two power stations constructed here, the A station, which began construction in 1929, and the B station, which began construction in 1945. The B station was built to directly mirror the A station. Both were coal-fired power plants, with the A station also being capable of being fueled by oil. The A station was finally decommissioned in 1975, with the B station following a few years later in 1983. A new development is now taking place around the power station, which will completely change this area, and as part of this, much of the view of the power station is now obscured when looking from the railway. Shortly after Battersea Park Station, the southeastern lines from the Chatham Main Line and South London Line join for the final mile or so into Victoria Station. The route here then crosses the River Thames by means of Battersea Pier. Victoria Grosvenor carriage sidings are just ahead on the right-hand side, which are used by southeastern trains to store networkers and Electrostars. At this point, we now arrive at London Victoria Station, which is the final terminus on the route. London Victoria is a major London terminus, and with over 85 million passenger entries and exits per year, it is the second busiest station in the United Kingdom, only behind Waterloo. Victoria is the start and end point for the majority of southern services on the Brighton Main Line, as well as suburban services operated by Southern. Along with this, all Gatwick Express trains both start and end here, as do southeastern trains for the Chatham Main Line. Originally, the railways serving South London all terminated south of the River Thames, which was often inconvenient as the major population centres were situated to the north of the river. One solution to this problem was the construction of Victoria Station just to the north of the Thames, which opened in stages starting in 1860. The original idea for the station came about in 1857 with the proposal for a Grosvenor Basin terminus for the use of the Southern Railways of England. The station was originally going to be named Grosvenor Terminus before the name Victoria was adopted. This was due to the site of the station being at the end of Victoria Street. 4 companies joined together to form the Victoria Station and Pimlico Railway Company, with the sole objective of extending the lines northwards to a new terminus. This necessitated the construction of a new bridge across the Thames. The station was opened in 1860 and was leased by the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway later that year. Victoria Station increased in popularity rapidly, resulting in congestion for trains heading into the station. By 1863, a new high-level route into Victoria was funded, which involved the widening of the bridge across the Thames to add extra tracks. The work for this was completed by 1867 to 1868. The Brighton Main Line side of the station opened in 1860 with 6 platforms and 10 tracks. From 1866, the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway began running services from Victoria to London Bridge by the then newly opened South London Line via Denmark Hill. The London, Chatham and Dover Railway, along with the Great Western Railway, leased the Chatham half of the station on a 999-year lease on the 28th of June 1860. The Chatham part of the station had 8 platforms, bringing the total number of platforms at Victoria at the time to 14. Both parts of Victoria Station were extensively rebuilt in the early 1900s, bringing up the total number of platforms to 19. Today, the eastern Chatham side of the station consists of platforms 1 to 8, with services operated by Southeastern and occasional excursions also operating. The central Brighton side of the station consists of platforms 9 to 19, with services operated by Southern and Gatwick Express. We've now taken a look at the entire Brighton Main Line and considered its complex and rich history, as well as looking at some of the key locations along the route. This now brings us to a close for this Routes Guide episode, and I really do hope that you have enjoyed this video. It was by far my most ambitious project to date, and it's taken many hours of work to put this video together. If you did enjoy it, then please don't forget to like and subscribe, and also please don't forget that you can find me on Facebook for the latest channel updates, with the link to my Facebook page being in the description of this video. If you would like to sponsor anything towards the work that I do, then please visit my Patreon page for more information, which can also be found in the description of this video. Once again, thank you for watching.